All right, so it sounds like we're live. Josh Newman from the Salt Lake Tribune. I cover the University of Utah Athletic Department. Norma Gonzalez, BYU Athletics beat reporter for the Tribune. And we're going to be with you for about a half hour talking college athletics, talking quarantine, talking about what it's like to be dealing with college athletics during a pandemic. And I figure we start there. I mean, Norma, what's it been like for you here so far? Just, we're in week, I don't know, 9, 10,
Yeah.
10
Yeah.
9 years, 10 years, it feels like, perhaps.
It's been a lifetime for sure.
Yeah. What's a day in the life kind of look like for you now, trying to cover BYU in the middle of a pandemic with no sports going on?
Well, as of now, I'm actually focusing more, I would say, on news than on BYU athletics, actually. So I do 2 breaking news shifts a week, plus whatever I get in the rotation that we're doing with the sports reporters. Plus, I'm working on another news project. So as of now, when it comes to BYU sports, it's just whatever news comes out. I'm not actively pursuing anything. So it's just like a new commitment or coach hires and stuff like that.
Right. So you and I are kind of in the same boat. You're doing a little more news stuff than I'm doing. I'm doing a news story here and there, but I'm also finding it's weird. We're in the middle of a pandemic. There's no spring football, there's no sports, but I feel like there's something to be written almost every day on the Utah side, whether it be, when is football going to start? What is the Pac-12 going to do? I have 2 kids in the NBA draft pool, so it's weird. It's almost like a pleasant surprise. I feel like there's more sports to write about and cover than I thought there'd be. So that's been a little weird.
What has been nice is doing more of like the sports features and like
Right.
getting to know these players, and like we don't have a practice to cover or games to cover, but we
Right.
can still tell the personal side of things.
Yeah, that's been another thing. I feel like from the Utah side, the athletic department has done a nice job of making the coaches available and making some players available. And this is a time when you can kind of get to know some of these kids on a more personal basis and write some of those features that maybe we wouldn't have time normally to tackle. We do have a question from Patrick. How has the pandemic affected spring training for the Utes and Cougars going forward? Do you want to tackle that first?
Sure. For BYU, obviously everything was canceled on, what was it, March 14th, I believe.
Yep.
But every player is accountable for himself. The trainer has sent out personal workouts. So they have like a base workout for everyone. Like, this is what you should be doing. And it's mostly dealing with like body weights. And then they were supposed to also send out photos to their coaches to show them what type of gear they have at home or gyms or whatnot. So then they'd also do personalized workouts according to what they have to work with them. And that's about it. They're just keeping up with each other. They FaceTime like within their groups, or they text each other, and they're just keeping themselves accountable because they want to be ready for the college football season, whenever that is.
Yeah, we're living in awkward times. There's a lot of obviously there's no in-person face-to-face contact going on right now between coaching staffs and players. There's a lot of Zoom meetings. From the Utah standpoint, they're trying to figure out who the quarterback is. And, they got through 3 spring practices and there's a quarterback competition going on. So that is sort of on hold here. And, it's been interesting to talk to some of the players and to talk to some of the coaching staff. I mean, look, you've got kids. Not only do you have your players spread out across the country, but you have, some players have better means of working out than others. I think Utah coach Kyle Whittingham threw a number out there, something like 40% of his roster just has no way to work out, no way to lift weights, no access to weight training equipment. So it's going to be interesting when everybody gets back on campus and you kind of see who's been able to do what and who is where in their development, because at some point here, the season will happen and practice has to happen, and you're going to have to figure out quarterbacks and different positions. So, so that kind of looms there in the background. One topic I did want to touch on, you've kind of had one of the bigger stories here of the spring with Matt Harms committing to BYU. Have you guys had a chance to talk to Matt Harms yet?
Yeah, I talked to him like shortly after he signed, and he's actually a super nice guy, or so it seems. Who knows? We'll see. But he just seems really eager to like come in and just put in the work to be able to be one of the main contributors to the BYU squad.
Yeah. It was an interesting. It was interesting how that all went down. You have a transfer at the level of Matt Harms and just what he's accomplished, and it was between Kentucky and BYU. And when you look at those two programs on the surface, it would seem to be kind of a no-brainer, right? That the kid would pick Kentucky. But I think that I think him picking BYU also speaks to what kind of a recruiter Mark Pope is. Fair?
Yeah, for sure. Mark Pope can make anyone fall in love with him, pretty much.
Yeah.
I know he's just like charmed me over, and I'm just like, I'm just waiting for you to like mess up. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want you to mess up. You're such a nice guy. And it's just like, I don't know what to do with you.
Right. As you said, I mean, you're doing news shifts, and, we're both helping out with news. And I'll talk about this too. What's a day in the life like here for you? Just, working on news, sports as they come, and just kind of dealing with the day-to-day stuff in terms of the pandemic and your work schedule.
It's mostly, so my living situation, I just rent a room from this family. So I just pretty much stay in my room. I don't have much space, so I mostly just stay in bed and work, and I just turn on my TV and put it on Pandora and just have music playing while I just try to chug away. And usually on my breaking news shifts, there's always something already going on by the time I log on, and then it just keeps going. And right now I have a major project, so I have like multiple interviews coming up for who knows how many stories, and it's just trying to make sure to keep everything scheduled correctly to where I still give myself time to be able to eat and be able to take little breaks, but then also still being able to handle anything that gets thrown my way.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat. Again, I feel like there's a lot of stuff happening every day, sometimes all at once, and definitely need to make sure that my schedule is straight. At some points I was working on a news story, and then there's 2 or 3 Utah things that pop up, and you're just trying to keep your day straight. So again, kind of from my end, pleasantly surprised at just how much there has been to do. When all this hit in March, I was kind of worried that there would be nothing to do, and and who knew what was going to happen. But it's been, I've been busy. I've been busy. Yeah. I'll say that. We do have a couple questions from Ed. Will there be live audiences in the stands? What have you heard regarding NCAA rules? Will they just be televised? Well, that sounds like 3 questions, Ed, but that's what we're here for, right? Will there be live audiences in the stands? That remains to be seen. You look at the SEC schools, places like Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, those places seem hell-bent on this is, football is religion, and we're putting 100,000 people in the seats come September. They seem very, very adamant that it's going to be business as usual come September. I think that remains to be seen. I think from the Utah perspective, I think at this point, I think Utah has been very, very rational about everything, including the potential for fans in the stands. I do think you might see fans in the stands in some respect. I don't think they're putting 45,000 people in Rice-Eccles Stadium, but I do think that they would like to get some sort of fan presence in the stadium. How that would work with social distancing, capacity with social distancing, I do think that remains to be seen. What are you hearing, Norma, on the BYU side of things in terms of getting fans in the stands come fall?
Yeah, they haven't really given any specifics, but it seems like they're waiting to see what they can do. So as a moment, like they're like, we're not making any decisions. We're gonna wait until it's closer to sort of make anything official.
Right.
But you can tell that they really want to have the regular schedule, and it seems like they would want to have fans in some capacity. However, I did talk to Zach Wilson last week, and he said either way it goes, there's advantages or disadvantages to it. So if it is a stadium full of fans, obviously they draw from that energy.
Right.
But if they don't have fans, then he said it would be more like a practice environment, and they would be able to get more focused and maybe, like, who knows, like, just play to the best of their abilities rather than being distracted by other things.
Yeah, and BYU has kind of an interesting scenario here. If these Power 5 conferences decide to go conference only for their schedule and play whatever 9, 10, 11 games, BYU is obviously independent. They don't have a conference, so I suppose we're going to have to see what happens with BYU's football schedule if conferences decide to go conference only. Just to finish up Ed's thoughts here, what have you heard regarding NCAA rules? Well, the NCAA isn't really ruling anything, and they've essentially left it up to the conferences on their own to kind of decide what they're going to do in terms of scheduling and fans and social distancing. I don't think the NCAA is really going to step forward, at least from what I've been told and heard. I don't really think the NCAA is going to step forward with any sort of singular unified plan. They're just kind of leave it up to the conferences, which could be good or bad.
Because it's have to make a national decision when different states are opening up,
right?
When different states are being affected differently by coronavirus, and it's just, you can't put a blanket rule over everyone.
No, I totally agree. A blanket rule from the NCAA would be very hard, just because, as you said, different states have different guidelines right now. So we'll see what happens there. And, and that's another good point by Ed, just to finish this up. Will these games just be televised? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we saw what happened with the UFC last weekend. And now there's some soccer leagues in Europe coming back, and those things are just televised with no fans. Personally, I am waiting for some of the television networks to kind of chime in here on their thoughts or about what they want to see happen. Because, look, the television networks are paying tens upon tens of millions of dollars to televise college football. So I think at some point they're going to either, if they don't get their say, they're certainly going to make their opinion known at the very least. A question from Alan. In the context of Utah nearly making the playoff last year and seeing Ute fans with high expectations, do you think they will eventually make it to a playoff? Wow. I guess people are really not over this yet, and I can see why. They got to the doorstep last year. High expectations. Do I think Utah will get to the playoff? I think it's going to be in this college football playoff format, when it's only 4 teams, right? We haven't expanded to 8 or 12 or 16. It's 4 teams every year getting to the college football playoff. I think in this format, I think it's going to be very hard for a Pac-12 team to be one of the top 4 and to get to the playoff. Will Utah get to a playoff? I think you're going to have to schedule a lot harder. If you're going to be a Pac-12 team that breaks through, you're going to have to schedule better than what Utah's doing with BYU and Montana and Wyoming. If you want to step forward and break through, you have to up your non-conference schedule, and you're going to have to play somebody that matters, like Oregon playing Ohio State this year. That's a gigantic opportunity for Oregon to have a big non-conference win on their resume. And, that's the kind of thing that it's going to take for a Pac-12 team to break through. Now, is Utah capable? I mean, yes, Utah is certainly capable. We saw what they were capable of last year when they got to, number 5 in the college football playoff rankings, lost to Oregon in the Pac-12 title game. If they had beaten Oregon, yeah, they were probably going to the playoffs. So is Utah capable? Yeah, they are capable. They've been Utah has recruited well in recent years. They're continuing to be on a roll, with their recruiting, and those are the building blocks. If you can recruit well with continuity on your coaching staff and you coach the kids up, yes. Do I think Utah is capable? Yes, I do think they're capable, but I do think there are steps that need to be taken still. Wow, I'm a popular guy this morning. This is another topic. Yeah, right. From Aaron, this is another popular topic. What do you think will be the fallout of the Booth Gauthier situation? Good question, popular question right now. I've actually got something lined up that will be online later today. The fallout is going to be, I don't like the word fallout. This is just part of the process. Booth Gauthier declares for the NBA draft. He's going through the draft process, and now he is transferring. He is in the transfer portal. The fallout is going to be simply that Utah has an extra scholarship to play with, right? With Gotch, they were at the maximum of 13. They're now at 12. So what are Larry Kostoviak's options with the scholarship? You go to the transfer portal. You can find some late help for the class of 2020. You can find a grad transfer that is immediately eligible, potentially with some size, because they need some size. And look, long-term fallout. I mean, look, Booth Gautier's people, his advisors have a relationship with Utah's staff. Booth Gautier's people have sent Larry Kostoviak talent before. We'll see what the relationship looks like after this, right? This is all still brand new. Feelings are maybe a little sour. The long-term fallout, we're not gonna know that right away, because that's why it's called long-term fallout. We have to kind of see what happens there. But in the immediacy, and I've said this on the radio and I've written this, in the immediacy, Booth Gauthier leaving, it's a hole to fill and you have to adjust, but I don't think it's completely detrimental. It's not crippling, because I do think Utah has enough talent to be competitive in the Pac-12, and their recruiting class is strong. Number 3 recruiting class in the Pac-12. So Gotch leaving, they have to figure it out, but it is they have to figure it out, but it's not a major detriment. So that's where we are on Gotch. Norma, just in general, just what else are you hearing around BYU right now in terms of just, whatever it be, football, basketball, just what's on your mind right now?
I've seen BYU talking a lot about old classic games, and they've been airing them here and there, and it's like, oh, that's a cool way, because obviously I'm not from the Utah area. I didn't grow up really even knowing about BYU. I didn't grow up in a sports household. So even though I don't have the time to actually watch these games, it's nice to see the interaction and have fans just sort of point out why they were special. And it's just like, oh, okay, this is cool. So I've been able to sort of keep an eye on things and just sort of get more of a feeling of BYU football and why it's been important.
Yeah, no, go for it.
I got a question. So sorry. So
no, go for it.
Stuart, what's the outlook for BYU basketball? How's the recruiting going? So most people may have thought once BYU got Matt Harms, that's it, they're set. But no, Pope is still keeping an eye on that portal, and just anything that they could add, any type of arsenal they can add to the squad, they're going for. Obviously fans may have been worried once the season ended, because BYU lost 7 seniors, 5 of who contributed the most to the offense, especially with Yoli Childs, with Jake Toulson, TJ Hawes, and just losing those big 3, and then the 2 really strong reserves, Zach Seljas and Dalton Nixon. Obviously, it's going to have a much different look next year, but they have Gideon George coming in. They have Spencer Johnson coming in from junior colleges that will immediately be able to contribute. Matt Harms is obviously going to come in and wanting to make a big impact as soon as possible. And then there's been 3 other signees, but they're going on their respective church missions first, so people won't be able to see them for 2 years. But so far, I think they're getting the right tools to be able to be successful. Plus, they've had guys just lining up ready to go. So obviously, they still have Connor, they still have Colby, they still have guys that can still contribute on the field, and are now going to move into these more leadership positions among the team now that they're becoming juniors, becoming seniors. Obviously, Alex Barcelo is looking to be a great leadership role for the team, especially breaking his wrist towards the end of the season and still playing through it and doing whatever he could. That just kind of blows my mind.
You mentioned, and look, as you said, you're not from the area. I'm not from the area. So I feel like we've kind of been learning on the fly in a lot of ways about the area and how things kind of operate around here. The one thing that I find fascinating is that when you're recruiting the state of Utah, you have to take into account kids that are LDS and that they will go on a mission for 2 years. Have you talked with Mark Pope much about that factor, about how recruiting works when you have to take that into account?
He loves it. Obviously, maybe not the whole having to wait 2 years to get the kid to come in, but he loves it because he knows that BYU has more of a mature, older team. And so by the time they come here, it's a completely different mentality than
Right.
when you're a 18-year-old straight out of high school. They've had more life experience. They're just older and more mature. So to him, it makes it easier. They want to work. They know how to put in the work by this point. So he really likes it.
Yeah, no, that's well said. And you covering BYU, you're dealing with that a little more than I am, but Utah has had some of that also with Brandon Carlson, who was their 7-foot freshman center last year. And people kind of forget he graduated from Bingham High School, took his 2-year mission, and he came back here as a 20-year-old, a little more mature, a little more ready to step into a role. So yeah, that is something I do find interesting. Question from Hank. I don't know who this is geared towards or what sport, but we'll roll with it. How many returning starters are coming back next season? Utah football, let's roll with that. Utah football has a lot of holes to fill, especially on defense. 9 defensive starters gone. Morgan Scalley has his hands full there. They're going to have to figure that out. And again, the quarterback situation at Utah is very, very unsettled, so they need to figure that out. Is there a lot of starters lost at BYU? I mean, let's say in terms of football?
I don't remember the numbers per se, but the team is fairly young. I want to say about 75% of the starters are still coming back.
That's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
For both of us, Jen is asking, how will COVID affect women's sports at Utah, the Red Rocks, meaning the Utah gymnastics team, and at BYU volleyball and others? I don't think that COVID, as of right now, just from what I've been told and from what I'm hearing, COVID is not going to be a major effect for the women's sports. Utah seems very committed to not cutting sports and not cutting budgets. And if they were going to, Utah is not going to touch their gymnastics team. Utah's gymnastics team is perennially ranked in the top 3, 4, 5 in the nation. They sell out the Huntsman Center. They draw very, very very, very large following the Red Rocks have here in Salt Lake City. From the BYU end, do you think that COVID will affect volleyball or any other sports?
No, I mean, other than possibly not having fans or I don't know, maybe just making minor budget adjustments. I don't think it really will, because volleyball, I mean, they're every year going into the playoffs. Soccer, every year going into the playoffs. This past season, they almost made it to the semis, I believe, if I remember correctly. Right. The gymnastics teams at BYU may not be as strong as Utah, but they're still a top 20 contender and one of the best in the nation. So it just wouldn't make sense to get rid of any programs or to cancel a season or whatnot. They're just all their sports, at least their women's sports, seem to be too good for them to do anything like that.
Yeah, a lot of these decisions are based around money, obviously. Not only women's sports, but Olympic sports, non-revenue sports, sports that are not football, that are not basketball, that do not draw fans, that don't bring in a lot of revenue. Those things at all schools would seem to be on the table in terms of budget cuts. I mean, we've already seen schools across the country cutting sports, right? Like the University of Cincinnati cut men's soccer. Old Dominion in Virginia cut wrestling. The MAC in the Midwest, they are making, sweeping radical changes to conference tournaments and the way teams travel and, trying to save money here and there. Even locally, I mean, I've talked to administrators at Utah State and Southern Utah, and they're trying anything and everything they can to save money, but not crush their athletic department, not cut sports, because cutting sports is a very radical thing to do, and it's not something that any athletic director wants to do. Did you have any thoughts on that? Just, any further thoughts? Just, in terms of cutting sports, obviously nobody wants to do that.
And once you cut a sport, some people may think like, oh, just cut it for this season or two. But you can't do that. Once
No.
once the sport is cut, like it's pretty much set that it's never coming back.
Right.
Now, of course, we've had some programs bring back a sport after like 50 years have passed by and things have changed, obviously, and now they have different resources and more money coming in. But this is it wouldn't be a quick fix to say, oh, just cancel this one sport for a season to help out. It's like it just wouldn't work out.
Right. No, you're absolutely right about that. If you cut a sport, you're not bringing a sport back, and certainly not in this environment, again, where budgets are being slashed and there's a lot of unknown. To me, I mean, the unknown is, and the unknown to me is a little scary, right? We're sitting here in mid-May and we're on like week 8 or week 9 of this thing, and we still, I don't know what's going to happen. I couldn't tell you what's going to happen next week, next month. So from that standpoint, things are kind of scary. I was curious, again, we're both not from the area. You've been here since what, September, right?
Mid-September, yeah.
What's been the best part for you about Utah? Because I'm enjoying my time in Utah. I was looking for a better quality of life, maybe a slower pace of life, right, than the Northeast.
Yeah.
What have you enjoyed about living in Utah?
Well, for one, it's the most beautiful place I've lived in. And I
Right.
actually live in Orem, just like a 10-15 minute drive away from BYU.
Yeah.
So I'm not in the city. So it's just super beautiful, but I don't know if I knew they actually have winter here, but I wasn't preparing myself as I should have, because I've always lived in the South. Like I grew up in South Texas,
Right.
on the border, then to the border in Arizona, and moved around Arizona a couple times.
Yeah.
So like this was my first real winter, and everyone's like, it was mild. And I was like, oh, no, thank you. People are really nice. It's just, it's been not so much like a cultural change or like a culture shock, but I've always, at least I find here in the Orem Provo area, it's more like there's no difference in classes. There's no like real poverty, whereas I grew up in poverty. I grew up amongst communities that
Okay.
were full. There's like no social economical like classes. There are big differences in them here.
Okay.
The only thing that has let me down is the food, because there's not good local food. Everyone says like, no, for the best food you have to go chain, and that's
No. What? No.
Yeah. At least down here, I feel like in Salt Lake City, there's a lot more options. But down here, there's...
Yeah. We're living in Sugar House, the Sugar House section of Salt Lake City. And yeah, there's chains all over the place. But no, if I'm looking for, what's popular in Salt Lake City or what got a good rating here or there, it's certainly not a chain place. I think we do have
a Mexican place. So if anyone wants to give me
yeah.
any type of like direction to be like, go to this place, like please do.
I've seen you say that on Twitter. Please help my girl out. Get her some good Mexican food. She needs it. She's been asking. Just give it to her. I think we do have a few minutes left here. Any other just general thoughts on just, whatever it might be, BYU, everyday type stuff, anything on your mind in terms of work? I know you've done some interesting news stuff. Anything on your mind?
No, not really. I mean, the only thing I have on my mind is what to ask the consul, because I'm going to be on a call with the consulate of Mexico in about 2 hours.
Okay.
And then I have a call with Comunidades Unidas. So my mind's switching to Spanish and doing Spanish interviews.
Okay. I feel like we've covered a lot here. Just, again, just the thing that's on my mind every day is just, it's just a lot of unknown. And look, we cover sports for a living. I'm sure that we would both like sports to return. We would like to cover football, once the fall hits. But I will say, I don't know how excited I'll be to sit in a press box in the middle of all this, especially if we're elbow to elbow with people. I'm really not super excited about that. But those decisions are coming from above my head. So I guess we'll see.
Yep. I just feel if everyone were to wear masks, and this is not just like to cover games, but just going out to the store or whatever, if everyone took the same precautions, then I'd feel a lot better. But because people aren't, I know this past weekend I went out to the grocery stores and probably like 75% of people were not wearing masks at all. And then the people that were wearing masks, half of them were wearing them below their nose. And it's like, that defeats the purpose. So it's like, as long as we all take the same precautions, then we should be fine, theoretically speaking. But it comes down to everyone doing their part.
Yeah, it does come down to everybody doing their part. And yeah, I would agree with you. I wish, look, we take the dog for a walk, and right now it's nice out, and you just see people, especially on the weekend, out and about. People are just living their life like everything's normal. No mask. I'd like to see some more social distancing. But yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. I'm not gonna get on my soapbox here, but it does come down to everybody kind of doing their part, because we would like to get back to some semblance of normalcy, including sports.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's going to do it for today. This was fun. I appreciate that our superiors asked us to do this. This was a nice little diversion from the everyday.
Yeah.
So if anybody has any questions, any comments, any concerns, any story tips, any ideas, I'm on Twitter at Joshua_Newman. My colleague Norma is at SL Trib BYU.
Yes.
Correct? All right. And that's Trib Talk for today. And if anybody wants to get at us with anything, there it is, at Joshua_Newman and at SL Trib BYU. And we'll talk to you soon, guys.